You know, this war may be hurting Americans, American consumers at the pump, but one person who's doing swimmingly well and enjoying a windfall is Russia's invading autocrat Vladimir Putin. And now the U.S. is considering lifting even more sanctions off of Russian oil as the cost of crude has surged above $100 a barrel for the first time since 2022. India refiners will now be granted a 30-day waiver to purchase Russian oil. That's according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. But President Trump says rising oil prices, quote, are a very small price to pay, adding, quote, only fools would think differently. We'll see whether American consumers consider themselves to be those fools or whether they agree with the president on this one. Let's bring in the co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box and New York Times columnist, Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew, I always remember, Bill Clinton, pretty good at that politics thing. Bill Clinton was obsessed with gas prices. Like that, man, he knew people drove past gas stations. They saw those signs up there. And, as a kid who grew up when gas used to be 30 cents a gallon and then, the next year it was over $1 a gallon, I understand the framework of that thinking. We're experiencing an uptick now. The question is, how is the street feeling not only about gas prices, where they're going, but where this war is going and how long they believe our economy can stay strong sustaining a war like this against Iran?
Well, I think the straight up answer is not good. Gas prices are a billboard on the corner of virtually every street in America. The president's talked a lot about gas prices just in the State of the Union and how successful he thought he was in bringing down those prices. And as these prices continue to creep up, you're seeing the stock market react, in part because there's a sense that this war in the Middle East will continue and potentially could even escalate. I think there's concerns now about, how long this goes on, what it means to the supply of crude. In a disastrous case, if you effectively don't have a place to put all of this oil from a storage perspective, you have to start shutting down some of the efforts to extract that oil. By the way, it's very difficult to shut things down and then restart these things. So there are really knock-on effects. You talked about the implications for Russia in terms of their ability to now charge more for the price of oil. And then there's a question about China in all of this, which is, China has a huge investment in the Middle East. They have been reliant in large part on cheap oil out of Iran. And in certain cases, this is going to be impacting them. Do at some point down the road, if this is prolonged, do they somehow try to get involved in some way that we haven't really discussed or has been on anybody's bingo card? So I think all of that has people anxious. The question is, does this go on for another week? Does this go on for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or longer? I will say one thing. The president has historically seen the market, and when the market has not reacted positively to what he's wanted to do, whether it be Greenland or tariffs on China or other things, he has stepped back. He has walked back. So there is a bit of a trade out there, which is the view that, depending on how things go, maybe he would step back a little bit more quickly than he would otherwise even want to.
Yeah. So what is the greatest fear driving markets across the globe? We saw the Nikkei go down 5%. South Korea's index is down. What is oil? What's driving
oil.
This mainly?
It is all oil. It is let me say it is oil, and the combination on top of that of the possibility of inflation, and so you don't feel like the Federal Reserve or other central banks are going to be lowering rates at the same time and probably wanting to wait to find out what happens in all this. But, as the price of oil goes up, it impacts everything. It really does across the board. You're seeing it hit airlines, whether it's travel, importing or transporting, just about anything. It touches so much of our life. It is not just about what it costs at the pump.
We will be watching those prices and, of course, the market. Wall Street opening in just about 3 minutes' time. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew, thank you as always.